Well, hi, welcome back to StoryVlog. My name is Gary Strudler, and I'm certainly glad that you're here with us again today. You know, last time when we met, we were reading in 2 Corinthians 5, and it's going to talk about God's glory. And this is a state of splendor and magnificence, and it's God's splendor and His magnificence being illuminated and lived out through us. But let me start where I ended off the last time, and that I read to you 2 Corinthians 3, starting in verse 5. And it says, "We are not saying that we can do this work ourselves. It is God who makes us able to do all that we do. He made us able to be servants of a new agreement from Himself to His people. This new agreement is not a written law, but is of the Spirit. The written law brings death, but the Spirit gives life." And as we continue on with 2 Corinthians 3, it talks about how the law brought death, but it was written on stone, but yet it still brought glory to God. When Moses came down with the stone tablets, his face shone with God's glory, and he had to keep it covered so that the people could not see God's glory. But eventually, the glory disappeared. And yet this new way of the Spirit brings more and greater glory to God. The old law loses glory and eventually disappears, but this new way never disappears and has much greater glory. We're not like Moses, and that we don't need to cover our faces so people won't see the glory and to see that it is ended. So today, when we read the law, there's a covering over the people's minds. But the person that changes and follows the Lord, then the covering is taken away. It's removed. And they can follow through the Spirit. And then when they do, they have freedom. Well, we show the Lord's glory, and we are being changed in His likeness. And the change in us brings greater glory, which comes from the Lord, the Spirit Himself. That's 2 Corinthians chapter 3. And you know what, as I think through this, and I think about it on a very practical level, and I think about when we do KIDStory and where we're presenting God's story to the kids, and I think about doing story clubs and all the administrative work and the things that need to be done, and I think of, all the ways that sometimes we think, I have to do this, I should be doing that, I shouldn't be doing this, I have to do this, and it gets us bound up into the law. I have to, should have, could have, I wish I had. And we get so wrapped up that it eventually loses God's glory. The glory's there, we do great and wonderful things, but it's done in our flesh. It's done in the things that we feel like we have to do or need to do, or that we want to do. And yet, what this verse tells me is that when we live by the Spirit gives freedom. We have the freedom to be able to follow what God has called us to do, to know that He'll enable us, to know that He'll equip us, He'll provide for us, that if we pause and listen for that still small voice, we're going to hear Him. He's going to answer us. He's going to lead us. Let me share a couple of things from my own personal life that hopefully, as we've talked about, that it's an open book. God's and mine. There was a time when I just got caught up into all of I have to, I should have, I need to, and all the demands of ministry that were on me, and eventually I just kind of burnt out, hit a wall. Just really couldn't go on the way that I was going on. Just was really fatigued. Some might call it midlife crisis. I just call it I was working by the law. I was trying to do things, and eventually God's glory was fading away. I was trying to do it in my own strength, trying to do things that would please others. Hopefully, eventually, it would please the Lord, but just trying to do all the things that I felt like others were asking of me. Got to that place where I just really kind of burnt out and had to be still, had to take care of myself. Went to a doctor, got a physical, took some breaks, had some quiet time. And eventually, God's Spirit started speaking. And eventually I started seeing that, there's so much freedom in doing things by the Spirit. that it actually became fun to do ministry. That as I was telling God's story in His Word, and as I was listening to the Spirit and listening to the kids rather than all the things that I felt like I had to do and should be doing, but actually got to respond to the Spirit, it was so much fun. I won't go back to doing it the old way. Why would I want to? The glory, the magnificence of God was fading away. But now I find that God's Spirit just opens up in me, in the kids, in the leaders that I'm leading. It's a whole new way of doing ministry. And it brings, as the verse says, it brings freedom. I am free. I'm free to do what God has called me to do, and to do it His way and not have to do it my own way. Yes, will He use the strengths and the gifts and talents and abilities that He's given me? Sure He will. But there's also that aspect that I'm doing it His way, in His time, waiting on Him, listening for Him, and responding as best as I can. And amazing things are happening. My life has changed. There's joy returned and full. And there's the blessings of watching others now responding in the same way. That they're hearing from God, and they're watching their kids hear from God, and they're responding, and people are coming to Christ, kids are coming to Christ. In another vlog, I'll tell you about a child who actually was able to deliver a demon from her own mom, 11 years old, and delivered a demon from her mom because she listened and obeyed, followed the Spirit's leading. And that's where God is going to glorify Himself and bring freedom to His people. Think about it. How are you responding to the Spirit? Are you taking the time to ponder, as we've talked about in past vlogs? Are you taking the time to just be still before Him, to hear His voice and respond appropriately, to realize that this is God's work? God, as the verse here says, God is enabling us to do His work. So let's begin this new year doing it His way, in His time, listening to His voice and responding appropriately. God bless you as you continue to create those environments where more kids are walking in the love of Jesus. God bless you. Thanks so much.